Alright, it looks like we are now... Okay, it looks like we're now live. Goody goody. What up? All you scofflaws and degenerates and other big words. I'm just making sure I have everything ironed out before we officially get into this. But with Christmas, even though Thanksgiving is still a couple weeks away, with Christmas pretty much around the corner beyond that, I thought it would be appropriate for us to talk Die Hard. I don't know why, I'm just kind of in a Die Hard mood. One of the coolest action, one of the best action franchises of all time, and one of the single best action movies of all time. I need to redo my 10 films that defines me video, because that movie and Die Hard is on that list. It's what I consider to be one point of the holy trifecta, the holy trinity of 80s action films, right there with Commando and First Blood. Right there with John McClane being right up there next to John Matrix and John Rambo as 80s action heroes.
Oh yeah. Sure.
Pretty much as badass as Dirty Harry, except McClane doesn't have that permanent steely-eyed scowl that Clint Eastwood has in every movie he's ever done.
Oh yeah.
So let's start with the first Die Hard. As it says here in the Wikipedia article I brought up. Sorry?
I would say it was released in 1988.
Mm-hmm. And based on the 1979 novel Nothing Lasts Forever by Roderick Thorpe, which I do have a copy of. Right over here. To move my copy of Hunt for Red October. Yep, I do have a copy of it. I was thinking of doing my own little, my own little audiobook for YouTube on this book for the Christmas season after I finish reading Hunt for Red October. Just an experiment I wanted to try. The originally written as a sequel to Roderick Thorpe's 1966 novel The Detective, and with the intention of getting it made as a sequel to The Detective with Frank Sinatra coming back to play his character from that movie. Except that's not what happened. No, instead of a geriatric 70-year-old Sinatra trying to be a steely-eyed action hero, we instead got Bruce Willis with his glorious receding hairline. And his rugged charm and his New York wit. Which it still makes me laugh that back then everybody expected this movie, nobody expected this movie to take off as well as it did. And when there were trailers for Die Hard showing in movie theaters up to release, people were actually laughing at the prospect of Bruce Willis being an action hero, because he wasn't known as an action guy back then. He was known as he was mostly known for his more the light comedic drama moonlighting. He wasn't like the standard for 80s action then in Hollywood was all these roided up meat mountains. You had Stallone and Schwarzenegger and Dolph Lundgren, and Van Damme was just getting popular, but then you had Bruce Willis, who was just an average Joe, and I think that actually worked in the movie's favor. And I think
Oh yeah.
that was a calculated uh, that was a conscious decision on Bruce Willis's part. He didn't want to portray John McClane as one of these, like a Schwarzenegger type of character, like John Matrix in Commando. Which is funny because one of the early drafts for Die Hard was it being written as a sequel to Commando. So picture Schwarzenegger barefoot in that wife beater, just running
You
up and
mean
down the tower.
you mean Willis?
I mean, like picture if they actually had made it as a sequel to Commando.
Oh,
Like picture Schwarzenegger, like it would be a completely different dynamic. Because with Arnold, it's like when he made Commando, the original writer for that movie had written it for Nick Nolte, and it was supposed to be this constant fear of could he rescue his daughter from Bennett, from these people that want him to go and assassinate a world leader. But then when Schwarzenegger took over that role, it was okay. Well, let's set our watch. It's going to be about 86 minutes, but it's still going to be fun as hell. If Arnold had taken Die Hard, that's pretty much what it would have done with this. I don't think McClane would have been such an endearing character if that was the case. I love Commando. It's one of my favorite. Like I said, Commando, Die Hard, and First Blood. There's that holy trinity of '80s action. I love Commando, but I love Die Hard more because
Oh yeah.
McClane is just he's just such a vulnerable guy. And yeah, he's a wise ass. He's a one-liner dispensary. And I think that actually works in his favor because that actually a lot of cops actually use that wit, that razor sharp wit and humor as a coping mechanism for some of the hairy shit they encounter on the job on a daily basis. And clearly it helps McClane cope with the shit that he has to deal with over the course of 5 movies and several video games. But it was a sorry
and a parody car battery commercial.
Oh god. Yeah. Oh yeah, that fucking car. The Die Hard battery.
Yeah, it's like yippee-ki-yay, mother. That's my line.
Yeah,
I fucking love that Hulu ad.
yeah. Just picture Schwarzenegger's yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
I can see it.
See you take this under advisement, jerkweed. Oh god. And I think
And back to what you said earlier when you said that Bruce Willis wasn't expected to be such an 80s hero icon.
yeah, nobody expected because of the fact that he wasn't a roided up slab of beef like Schwarzenegger, like Stallone. And and this was the late '80s. I mean, Charles Bronson, God bless him, was still he was in his 60s and still starring in canon films movies that might as well have been parodies of action. I mean, they're great. I fucking love Death Wish 3 and 4, even though those movies turn Paul Kersey, mild-mannered architect turned vigilante, into urban John Rambo. I mean, Eastwood, he was doing more than just trying to do action, and Chuck Norris's popularity was kind of waning. This was before Walker Texas Ranger started up. And so
Oh yeah.
and that steely-eyed, stoic action hero was kind of fading off. So you needed somebody who just seemed like an average dude, and then you get somebody like John McClane, Bruce Willis, who it was. I mean, yeah, he had muscle. He was in pretty decent shape for his age and for that movie, but he was almost an average build guy. He's built like a cop. He's not built like a Mr. Olympia. And part of it, and again, that was Willis's decision he wanted to portray McClane as this character who at any point in time could easily get killed due to, I think I read somewhere that by his own decision, it was after reading Roger Thorpe's novel, and the way the book ends, like it feels like the character could easily could easily not make it following the book's conclusion. And Bruce Willis wanted to take that and basically portray McClane like that throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you add in the late Alan Rickman as this ultra suave, this ultra suave, super sophisticated terrorist. Well, exceptional thief. Guy's still a fucking terrorist.
Yeah. But what I was gonna say earlier, the whole situation with Bruce Willis not even being considered being an '80s action icon, it draws resemblance to something similar around that time with the petition of people begging Warner Brothers to recast Batman after it was announced Michael Keaton was going to be Batman.
Yeah. Sometimes the audience is just, I mean, the audience is the most important is the most important thing to your movie, for your movie. Sometimes the audience is full of shit. Sometimes they know what's up. God knows they certainly know what's up with Star Wars and Marvel right now. At least where their Disney Plus shows are concerned. Sometimes the audience is on the money, but sometimes they're just colossally full of shit. And for you bringing up Michael Keaton and Batman, yeah, that was definitely a case where everybody was wrong, and nobody was willing to admit that they were calling it out. That they called it wrong. And Bruce Willis is John McClane. Everybody was wrong about him not being a believable action hero prior to them seeing the movie.
For sure.
But going back to Alan Rickman, Jesus Christ, I rewatched the first movie earlier today. I actually rewatched the first 3 movies earlier today. And
they're on Hulu.
I've got the DVDs.
So I watched them on Hulu.
Yeah, I've got the DVDs of the first 4, and then I've got the 5th movie on Blu-ray. I was rewatching Die Hard 1 today. Alan Rickman is just, even though he's the villain of the movie, is still just mesmerizing to watch. Especially
Since 13 years later, he'd be playing one of the rather important characters in the Harry Potter series.
Yeah. For a while, I didn't even know that, because I'm not a Harry Potter fan, I just tuned out most of that series, the ones I have watched. So I didn't even know that he was Snape until a cousin of mine pointed it out. I was like, wait, are you serious? Dude,
he was also an antagonist in Sweeney Todd.
Yeah, he was also
one of Johnny Depp's best movies.
He was also the sheriff of Nottingham in the Kevin Costner Robin Hood movie. And
really?
Yeah, he owns every frame of that goddamn movie. He's every scene he's in, he fucking steals it. Loxley, I'm gonna cut your heart out with a spoon. Why a spoon? Why a spoon, cousin? Because it's dull, you twit. It'll hurt more.
Well, but still, I don't see how it'll hurt more, but okay. Yeah. You know, and some of those old movies in that time period, I've heard people say cunt like kunt. And one of these days, I just want to do a full-fledged review of one of those movies just so I could say, it's pronounced cunt, you kunt.
It's probably just the accent.
It's pronounced cunt, you kunt.
That sounds like something Doug Walker would say.
Something who?
That sounds like something Doug Walker would say.
Probably.
It wouldn't surprise me at all. But you also add this movie being... Oh, and a thing about Alan Rickman, this was his very first film role. Period. He had never done movies prior to Die Hard. He was actually... the director, John McTiernan, and one of the producers, Joel Silver, I think it was, found Alan Rickman doing stage theater. He was doing Shakespeare when they found him and were like, this guy, this is our Hans. We're absolutely getting him.
Yeah, and he was 42 when Die Hard came out, so the fact he started that late in his career, especially since it says, according to Wikipedia, it says years active 74 through 2016.
Yeah.
Yeah, he started his career the same year my mom was born.
Yeah, and they started filming this. They didn't start filming this movie until '87, so yeah, he'd been doing Shakespeare. He'd been doing stage theater for a while.
Yeah, he was 28 when he started doing that.
Yeah, and you add to it this movie being directed by, since I brought up John McTiernan, the guy who this was the middle chapter in a 3-movie run that he had in the late 80s, early 90s of just 3 consecutive smash hits. You had Predator in 87, you had this in 88, and then Hunt for Red October in 1990. All 3 of which are fantastic movies.
Oh yeah. And we already talked about the Predator franchise.
Yeah. Plus, you had the camera work, the gorgeous cinematography this movie has, being handled by Jan de Bont, who, on top of being McTiernan's cinematographer for Hunt for Red October, made his directorial debut in '94 with Speed, with Keanu Reeves and Dennis Hopper and Sandra Bullock. And then going on to direct Twister.
Twister.
A movie that is now the reason I have a permanent fear of tornadoes.
Really? Because I find myself wanting to go outside and let myself be swept up in said tornado most days.
Well.
Especially when you read some of the stupidity I have on Twitter.
Hey, Twitter and stupidity are an easier fit than Tila Tequila after a half dozen Mai Tais.
Well, the whole platform's going nuts since Elon Musk took over.
Fuck him. Let him go nuts.
I mean, I'm not a fan of Elon Musk either, but at least I know I'm not going to get suspended again.
Yeah, just as long as you don't try to impersonate him.
Yeah, no shit. Trust me, I have I have no interest. I have no interest in impersonating that fish lip jackass.
Yeah, nobody needs you following the same path as Kathy Griffin and Ethan Klein. Then again, nobody
And
with
some and some company called Hee Hee Productions.
Production. I think that is Ethan Klein's company.
Oh,
Which, I mean, nobody with a brain with an IQ above their shoe size should be following the example of Kathy Griffin and Ethan Klein anyway. But that's another story.
mm-hmm.
Anyways, yeah, a lot of that's the thing. A lot of '80s movies are shot with this very static camera style where they just bolt it down. There's no like there's no like flair. There's no elegance in the cinematography. Sometimes you get a decent frame or two, but then you get this where it's like almost every movie from back then was using the 1:7 aspect ratio, which is serviceable enough, but McTiernan here using the 235 ratio where it's like full widescreen, there's so much in the frame that you can actually look at. You don't necessarily have to focus on the character that the frame is centered on. Like, as a fun little experiment, whenever you're watching a movie, as an experiment, whenever you're watching a movie, try turning the volume all the way down and seeing if the director can convey the same story to you visually as he does when you have the visuals and the sound complementing each other. And I actually tried that once with a couple of McTiernan's films, and he's a great visual director. The fact that he hasn't made a movie since 2006 is complete and utter horseshit. The fact that 87 North isn't calling him up like, hey dude, we got some scripts here. You think you might want to do some action movies again? It's what the fuck, man. He made two of the most important action movies of the 1980s. Like, throw him a goddamn bone.
I'd say go bang on his door and demand it, but that's how you get a restraining order.
I mean, Marvel's not gonna do it. They're too busy hiring they're too busy hiring like young, fresh out of film school ideologues who have like one or two independent dramas or documentaries under their belt. It's like Marvel doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. Like, they're at a point right now where they're not resting on their laurels. They're locking back into their Barca Lounger with a big gulp, a fistful of Cheetos, and Maury Povich reruns. But they've been doing that since 2012 anyway. So yeah, but I love that despite the fact that they made Bruce Willis, that Bruce Willis actively chose to portray just an everyman, just a regular Joe who was caught up in a crazy situation. The movie does not sacrifice having big, crazy explosions, insane action sequences. From what I understand, a lot of them are actually taken verbatim from Roderick Thorpe's novel, because in Thorpe's novel you have this guy Joe Leland running around the tower barefoot with only his service pistol. In the book, it was a Browning high power. In Die Hard, it's a Beretta 92F. The first terrorist he kills, just like McClane, he breaks the guy's neck. Funny enough, in the book, the terrorist leader's name is Anton Gruber, or Tony Gruber, and the first terrorist that Leland kills, who ends up being Carl's brother, his name is Hans. And then in Die Hard, they just switched it up. Um, there is both the book and the movie have a scene where the character has to use the sling on a submachine gun to lower himself down into a vent shaft. Has to get the police's attention by throwing a body out the window. Having to stop the terrorists from killing more police officers by dropping a block of C4 down an elevator shaft. In fact, in both cases, he even says, "Geronimo, motherfucker."
Yeah.
Both cases, the character being forced to listen to Ellis's murder over the radio, spending the rest of the a large chunk of the story in radio communication with L.A. Sergeant Al Powell, who in the book is actually a 22-year-old police sergeant, whereas in the movie we've got Reginald VelJohnson, who I'm guessing was in his late 30s, if not early 40s, when that movie was shot.
Oh yeah.
Trying to think of some. Oh yeah, the scene towards the end where both characters have to jump off the roof of the building with a fire hose tied around their waist and then shooting out a window to get back into the tower, and then confronting the big bad with a gun taped to his back and pulling it out and shooting him out of a window, and then the big conclusion of Carl showing up outside the building on the ground level and trying to kill McClane or Joe Leland and being shot by Al. Like, so much actually getting taken from the book to the movie. It's just that the movie uses different names for certain characters and changes up the scenario and changes up the motivations of the terrorists.
Oh yeah.
Still a damn good movie though.
For sure.
And a very good NES game. Yeah, I had a lot of fun playing that and recording it for my video. So we've got Die Hard, but of course, because this movie was a roughly $140 million success story, of course we had to get a sequel in Die Hard 2: Die Harder.
How much time do you think they put into coming up with that title?
I'm pretty sure they just put random Die Hard puns on like little strips of paper, threw them into a top hat, and then just drew them out at random. Like, what is it? Oh, Die Harder. That's what we're gonna go with.
That sounds like something you say in the bedroom.
Now I know the name of the Die Hard porno spoof.
Oh God. I think I downloaded the wrong Die Hard movie.
Right. Now I'm thinking of a completely different use for McClane's wife beater than a rag for his foot after he steps on glass.
That's like when you're expecting a baby and the baby comes out with clown makeup on. You're like, I should have pulled out.
Not directed by John McTiernan this time. It was done by Rennie Harlin, who is known for, as it says here, A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Adventures of Ford Fairlane with Andrew Dice Clay, Cliffhanger, which oddly enough is kind of a Die Hard clone. It's just with Sylvester Stallone in place of Bruce Willis. Uh, John Lithgow in place of Alan Rickman, and instead of a skyscraper, it's taking place on a mountain. It says he also did the Long Kiss Goodnight, the Shane Black script with Sam Jackson and what was that? Oh, Gina Davis. Been a while since I've seen that one. But then he also did the 1995 film Cutthroat Island, which it says held the Guinness World Record for largest box office loss. Ugh. Probably still did better than Bros. Anyway. Die Hard 2, for me, I don't love it as much as Die Hard 1. I don't think Bill Sadler, who plays the movie's villain, Colonel Stewart, I don't think he's as... Like, they definitely went out of their way to make him more menacing than Hans Gruber. But I think that kind of undercuts what makes Hans such a memorable villain is not just that he's a very menacing character. Even though he is. He's there are scenes where he can actually be like scary. Like he was a ruthless character to follow. But he was so he had that English charm. Even though he's supposed to be German, I mean that's Alan Rickman. He was British. He had that he had a certain charm. He was so smooth and so suave with how he conducted himself, and his dialogue really complemented that. And then you have Bill Sadler as Colonel Stewart, who was, he's menacing. He's a very threatening character, but he wasn't a very charming villain. He was just kind of an action movie villain. With a very action movie villain thing to do, trying to stop the extradition of a militant general, whereas all Hans wanted to do was just take hostages and get shitloads of money.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we definitely and one thing that does work for it is them upping the stakes, because with action movie sequels, you've got to keep increasing the stakes until it gets so outlandish that you have to go back to basics. Like in the first movie, we have the skyscraper. We have like 30 or so hostages inside the skyscraper. A group of 12 terrorists. And, you got your one guy on his own with no help from the outside, pretty much. And then you get to this, where it's not just like one building. It's not just an office Christmas party. It's an airport, and it's not just the people inside the airport. It's the planes that are still circling the runway due to the weather conditions, because it's Christmas Eve in Washington, D.C., so of course the weather's going to be a complete bitch. It's Christmas Eve in Virginia, in the East Coast. I think D.C.'s in Virginia. I've never figured out where D.C. actually is. Although one of the fun things about this movie is spotting two future Hollywood stars that are actually among Colonel Stewart's group of bad guys. One of whom being a very young John Leguizamo. his he has no dialogue. All of his he's like just in camera only. But if you know what he looked like back in the early '90s, like you spot him in an instant. And then a very young pre-Terminator Robert Patrick.
And William Sadler,
Yeah.
who was in the original Hawaii Five-0.
Was he on that show? I've only watched a couple episodes of it, and I don't think he was in the ones that I did watch.
He's in the old show, not the new show.
Right. That's what you said, the original. So, huh? I was not aware of that.
Well, let me look real quick. It says here. I misread something.
Okay.
It says here he is an American actor who portrays John McGarrett on Hawaii Five-0, and John McGarrett, as in the father of Steve McGarrett, played by Alex O'Loughlin in the remake show.
Okay.
Which happens to be one of my earliest fan casts for Chris Redfield.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about that when we talked about Welcome to Raccoon City last year.
I mean, if the first Resident Evil movie was actually went by the events of the game and casted the characters, well, it says here that hang on. Alex O'Loughlin, he's been acting since 2001, and it was 2002, so he probably would have been 25, 26, close to the age of Chris Redfield when they would have done the movie anyway.
Yeah.
Back on topic.
Yes. Back to Die Hard.
Where were we?
Back to Die Hard 2. I mean, I don't know. Die Hard 2, like I said before, I like it. I like that they up the stakes. I like that the action is still up to standard. I don't think Rennie Harlan uses the widescreen cinematography as well as John McTiernan did. I mean, there's not very many directors who actually do use wide framing that well. I mean, I could think of a few outside of John McTiernan. Zack Snyder is one of them. John Carpenter is one of them. And if I try to sit here and think of any more, we're going to be here all day. I think Die Hard 2 is a very serviceable sequel to the first movie. I just don't think it's as good. Like obviously McClane's wit is still there, which that's apart from the fifth movie, that's a recurring element. His wit never leaves. And I don't think I just had a thought and then I lost it. Shit.
It happens to me all the time, bud.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, there's just not much for me to really say about Die Hard 2. It's just kind of, it's a movie that exists. It's okay to watch when you're marathoning the series. I just don't find it hold it up to the same standard as I do the first one, which the exact opposite of that is the case for the third movie, Die Hard with a Vengeance. Hey, at least with this one, they didn't try to invent a word like Kojima did Yeah. Word to Metal Gear fans: revengeance is not a fucking word.
No shit.
Die Hard: revengeancing a vengeful, vengeancing revengeancers.
Say that 5 times fast. Yeah, say it 5 times fast multiple times, you're gonna end up with a fucking hernia.
You're gonna give yourself a stroke. On top of that, Die Hard with a Vengeance.
There's some people I'm surprised haven't had a stroke yet with the way their fucking shit is.
Die Hard with a Vengeance is far and away my favorite entry in this series. As much as I love Die Hard 1, I love Die Hard with a Vengeance even more, and most of that comes down to, first off, we've got the return of John McTiernan directing, since I think this was after he directed Last Action Hero with Schwarzenegger, which, not a bad parody of Arnold movies, but I think James Cameron did a better parody of Arnold's movies with True Lies. I mean, Last Action Hero is fine if you understand it's a parody and you're not trying to take it too seriously.
Oh yeah.
Coming back with John McTiernan from a script that was written by Jonathan Hensley, the guy who wrote and directed the 2004 Punisher movie with Thomas Jane. The primary chemistry with this chemistry between Bruce Willis and Sam Jackson, as poor Sam Jackson in this movie, man. He's just a regular Joe, just trying to run a nice little shop in Harlem, and here comes John McClane because some asshole is extremely pissed off at him. Poor Sam Jackson just has to get caught in the middle of it.
Happened. Well, I guess that happens when you fork terrorists on Christmas Day.
Yeah. You end up having your day ruined by their asshole brother, Simon, played to absolute.
Simon?
Yeah. Yeah, that was the villain's name in this movie. It's Simon.
That says a lot.
Yeah. Simon Gruber.
How the fuck up, Simon?
Simon Gruber played to just as perfect as Alan Rickman was in the first movie. Jeremy Irons as Simon Gruber was absolute 100%. Like, I love these two characters so much, and I think it does come down to them being so suave and so sophisticated. Like, they know everything. They have every contingency looked at, with the exception of course, McClane's persistent desire to not lose. At this point, I'm convinced John McClane's receding hairline is woven from Kevlar.
Probably. It is Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
Then again, we're talking about the same guy who voiced the computer-generated raccoon back in 2006.
Ugh. I have no desire to see over the head.
And that same movie had William Shatner voicing a Father Possum.
I think I'll just stick with Bruce Willis voicing Tommy Pickles' dog in Rugrats Go Wild. At least that movie has the wild thornberries in it. So.
Yeah, back when Nickelodeon was actually entertaining.
Back when entertainment was actually entertaining.
Fair enough. That's like... I mean, seriously, saying that is like reviewing only the first 3 or 4 Hellraiser movies, and then when Pinhead shows up and says,
when are you going to finish reviewing my series? And then you look him in the eye and say, when you fucking make better movies. And he looks you back in the eye and says, fair enough. Because a lot. I'm sorry, what?
I think I think this was initially conceived as a. I think it was actually initially conceived as a sequel. It was either conceived as a sequel to Lethal Weapon 3, or it was conceived as a sequel to Speed.
Oh boy.
Yeah, which, I mean, if this movie had ended up being Speed 2, I would have rather watched that than the actual Speed 2 we got. Speed 2 is terrible. With every scene that doesn't have Willem Dafoe in it is just terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a separate rant. I love one thing I absolutely love about the Grubers is their complete ability to take what is a grand heist and mask it under a complete act of terrorism. Hans taking the Nakatomi building hostage in the first movie, and their whole goal is to break into the building's vault so they can steal $640 million in negotiable bearer bonds, which I'm not a banker. I don't know the point of I don't know what bearer bonds were for back in the day. I don't know. And then you have Simon in this one, who is rigging bombs all over New York and just sending McClane and Sam Jackson's character Zeus all up and down Manhattan Island trying to stop these bombs. And it's part revenge plot against John McClane, but then he's disguising his acts of terror against New York to rob the Federal Reserve, which I don't know what it's worth now, but the gold in the Federal Reserve, at least in the movie, according to Simon, was worth roughly $140 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Like fuck Hans. $640 million, that's baby weight, Hans. I'm still at $140 billion. Even though you're getting revenge for your brother's death, but you gotta upstage him anyway.
Yeah, no shit.
I'm going to assume Simon was the older sibling.
Probably.
I think Jeremy Irons actually was older than... I think Jeremy Irons actually was older than Alan Rickman. You know, for years I did not know Jeremy Irons played Scar in the Lion King. The one from the 90s.
Hold the fuck up. Isn't this guy Alfred?
Yes. Batman v Superman, Justice League, Alfred.
Jesus Christ, he looks like Michael Goff.
He does, actually.
He's also English.
Yeah. Instead of hiring legit German actors, they gotta hire Englishmen.
Yes, speaking of Michael Goff, did you know that in 1961 he starred in a movie called Conga?
No.
Yeah. The guy who plays Alfred in Tim Burton's Batman starred in a King Kong ripoff. Well, starts out as a chimp, which eventually turns into a giant full-fledged gorilla, and it's like, how the fuck does that work?
I don't know,
I guess
dude.
I guess you could say they should have called the movie Trans Ape. I don't know. Because he went from being a chimpanzee in the beginning to a guy in an ape suit at the end.
And, hey,
So
don't
at
bring
least
up Trans Ape.
accurate.
You're probably end up giving the Kardashians ideas.
Yeah, let's not give the Kardashians any more ammunition.
Yeah, the only ammunition they should take is do you want that in 9mm or 357 Magnum variety? That's the only ammunition the Kardashians deserve.
Yeah, don't ask me how they're fucking famous.
Yeah,
I know why. Because the media's stupid.
what I'm in just a random side tangent to paraphrase Dennis Leary. What the fuck exactly is Kim Kardashian's contribution to this goddamn fucking world? She can't act, she can't model, and God knows who's seen her sex video knows she can't fuck to save her life, so what gives?
She can't fuck to save her life.
What,
no,
gives?
If she can't do it properly, then why do the Kardashians keep reproducing?
Because they hate society. Well, that, and I'm pretty sure Kim's uterus is classified as festival seating.
Classified as what?
Festival seating.
Festivals? Are you saying festival feeding or festival seating?
Seating.
Oh.
I'm not saying Kim is a vapid whore, but if we were living in the Star Trek universe, by this point she'd have screwed more aliens than Ellis Island.
or gave birth to more than xenomorphs. Imagine xenomorphs in the Star Trek universe.
I can't even work up a good enough Shatner impression to roll with that premise. But anyways.
I mean, Shatner is literally Michael Myers, so you don't have to say anything at all.
Yeah. I will say McTiernan's visual storytelling was still very much on display with this movie, despite Jan de Bont not being the cinematographer. I think at this point he was probably still like rolling with the marketing for Speed when they filmed it, or he was entering pre-production for Twister. So instead we end up with Peter Menzies Jr. as our cinematographer. A guy who I guess he's got a decent track record. Die Hard with a Vengeance, A Time to Kill, the Joel Schumacher movie, Tomb Raider, the first one with Angelina Jolie, Clash of the Titans. Yeah. Decent enough. Who was cinematographer on Die Hard 2, I wonder? Oliver Wood. I've seen his name in a number of Face Off. Oh, he was a cinematographer for Face Off, my favorite John Woo movie of all time. And various episodes of Miami Vice. See also The Greatest Cop Show of the 1980s. But following Die Hard with a Vengeance, our series would take a 12-year hiatus before being revived, but dusted off and revived with Live Free or Die Hard. Now, for those who don't know, I have a certain thing when it comes to late sequels, in Live Free or Die Hard's case, being released 12 years after Die Hard with a Vengeance. I am not a fan of late sequels. I think if you cannot materialize a sequel within 5 to 6 years of a movie's release, it's time to just let it sit and head back to the drawing board and maybe create a new title. Now, sometimes you get a belated sequel that actually works, that actually warrants the wait between films. We saw that last year with, it was either last year or the year before, with Bad Boys for Life, which I think is the best of the Bad Boys series. We saw that with
Praise, bitch.
We saw that earlier this year with Top Gun Maverick, which is my favorite movie of this year so far. I mean, we still have about a month and a half ish worth of movies. Live Free or Die Hard definitely falls into that category. Even though we don't get another suave, sophisticated German terrorist. No, we've got an American terrorist, a cyber terrorist, to bring us into the new millennium in the form of Deadwood and Justified's Timothy Olyphant. As
Oh boy.
Tim Olyphant and who is banging Maggie Q, who is also one of the terrorists.
Oh boy.
This time we've got and again we've got McClane paired with a complete mismatching. In Die Hard with a Vengeance, we had McClane paired with with Sam Jackson as a very racist guy. Although that thankfully that only became an issue in like one or two scenes, and then Sam Jackson was still in full self-preservation mode anyway. And then you have, in this movie, we've got McClane, who is the old school, guns a-blazing, kicking ass guy, paired with Justin Long, who is this really kind of shrimpy, scrawny, like, computer geek guy. Guy barely knows his asshole from his ear hole. And you've got these two guys just having to come together and fight cyber terrorist Timothy Olyphant. And I kind of love it. Like, and since I brought up raising the stakes in Die Hard 2, Die Hard 1, you had one skyscraper with 30 or so hostages inside. Die Hard 2, you had an entire airport and planes that were that were circling the runway because of the storm, and now can't land because all the computers that control landing and whatever are down because of Colonel Stewart and his ilk. Then you have Die Hard with a Vengeance. The entire city of New York is being held hostage by this mad bomber who wants revenge on McClane for killing his brother. And then you've got Live Free or Die Hard, where it's not a building, it's not an airport, and it's not a city. It's the entire country. America is being held hostage, and we have to rely on John McClane to get us to deliver us from cyber terrorism. John McClane, who probably can barely navigate the treacherous slopes of a flip phone.
Yeah.
This movie, like, and the thing is, with these first four movies, with all of them, it never once feels like McClane is just constantly on top of everything. Like, for every time it seems like he could be one step ahead of the bad guys, something will always happen that puts him just 2 or 3 steps behind them. And that was very much the case with Hans. Even though I didn't care for him, that was very much the case with Colonel Stewart, and that was the case with Simon and now Tim Oliphant's character Thomas Gabriel, who, yeah, the guy's a cyber, the guy's a computer whiz. He leaps and bounds above John McClane, who. There's a line in Die Hard 2 that I always think about, where McClane tells his wife, as far as I'm concerned, progress peaked with frozen pizza. I mean, he probably isn't wrong, honestly. With the way technology is now. But here you have this guy who is holding all of America hostage while trying to siphon off billions of dollars in America's wealth as payback against the government for blacklisting him. Which, I mean, it's the U.S. government. Go figure. And with this, and again, from the first movie all the way up to this one, every action sequence that they give, it always feels like there's some point where McClane could easily just die. And yeah, there's some crazy shit happening in this movie that is like leaps and bounds above John McClane's pay grade. Like he's doing like there's scenes where he's doing, he might as well be Captain America. The scene where he's in an 18-wheeler playing chicken with a VTOL jet immediately comes to mind. Or his fight scene with Maggie Q in this power plant that is supposed to control all the power for the Eastern Seaboard. Or it just the first scene where it's him and Justin Long in this apartment and a bunch of Gabriel's mercenaries are trying to get in. It's this movie, like I give credit to Len Wiseman. The guy knew what he was doing when he said he was going to make another Die Hard movie. Like, this movie feels like Die Hard. Like even Bruce Willis has said that he felt this movie felt even more Die Hard than the first movie. Like, when your own star is saying that about your movie, you know you did something right. And again, this is Len Wiseman, the guy who directed, I think he did I know he did the first one, but I think he did the first 2 Underworld movies. Yeah, he did the first 2.
That's something I haven't watched in years.
Yeah. Earlier this week, he started filming a movie called Ballerina, which is a John Wick spinoff. Yeah, with Ana de Armas. It looks like she's the main. It looks like she's going to be the main actress. And then, right now, it looks like the only ones confirmed to return for this movie that are from the other movies are going to be Ian McShane and Keanu Reeves.
I was going to say, if it's a John Wick spinoff, it better have fucking John Wick.
Yeah, you gotta have Keanu, and you gotta have Ian McShane. Plus, I hope Lance Reddick makes an appearance. Yeah, I mean, Len Wiseman directed the Total Recall remake with Colin Farrell, and that's kind of I haven't seen it myself, but I understand a lot of people really did not like it.
As remakes go.
Yeah. But I think he really... like, of the ones I've seen from Len Wiseman so far, this is probably his best one, even if it's a belated sequel to a 12-year-old, to a, at the time, 12-year-old movie. Because this was '07 and Die Hard with a Vengeance came out in '95. And despite this movie being PG-13, which I don't understand why they made it PG-13 at all, like, when I watched it theatrically, I almost didn't really notice that it was a PG-13, and then I watched the unrated cut on DVD, and it's like, you know what, I think I'd rather just watch the uncut version. Yeah, this was that point in time where, and Hollywood's still kind of stuck in this mode where they think PG-13 automatically guarantees a success, and it's like, no, that's definitely not the case. I think it's like Expendables and Halloween and John Wick have more than, and Deadpool have more than proved that you don't have to be PG-13 to make a return on your investment anymore. I mean, I look at this period in Hollywood's time, like, and this really started in the mid to late 2000s. It's like, oh, hey, Lily, what's up? And I just think, what did the PG-13 rating do to piss off the to piss off Hollywood? Did it point and last out poorly? Jet Li's Unleash did. What was it caught? Was it caught with an underage altar boy in the champagne room? Like, what the shit?
Oh God!
Like, what the fuck did the R rating ever do to Hollywood? It's like, well, maybe it's not that the movie's R rated that's the reason that your movie didn't sell. Maybe it's the fact that you just made a pile of ass.
Justice League.
Yeah. Even though that movie wasn't even rated R.
But the director's cut was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Zach's. Well, both the directors cuts of Batman v Superman and Justice League were both rated R.
So was the director's cut of Daredevil.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Live Free or Die Hard was a movie that felt, even though they really upped the stakes, even though they upped the scale and really upped the action, the scenarios that McClane was put in, it still felt like a Die Hard movie. Which I cannot say the same for the fifth and most recent of the series, A Good Day to Die Hard. This is not a Die Hard movie. Now, I don't mind this movie in a vacuum on its own. Like if you discount the previous four movies, it's an okay action film. But as Die Hard, it's a failure. It fails on almost every level. John McClane is just in full give no shits mode in this movie. It's like he might as well just... Bruce Willis might as well not even be playing John McClane. He might as well just be some other guy.
Pretty much.
There's no clear-cut villain for most of the film. Like, they spend a large bulk of it building up this one guy who is a Moscow dancer for some reason. And it's like you spend the entire movie thinking it's this guy, and then it ends up being like Wish.com version of Franco Nero from Die Hard 2. This movie feels less like a Bruce Willis. It feels less like Bruce Willis's movie. It feels less like a John McClane movie and more like a Jai Courtney action film that they just happen to They just happened to call Die Hard. They just happened to put Bruce Willis inside, and they were like, "Fuck it, it's a Die Hard movie." Plus, it doesn't help that this movie's director is John Moore, whose biggest whose biggest directorial works include. Hang on, let me adjust this. Whose biggest directorial works include Behind Enemy Lines, that shitty remake of The Omen from 2006, and even though
I forgot that really existed.
And even though I actually kind of like it, I understand why a lot of people don't. The 2008 Max Payne movie with Mark Wahlberg. Like, I completely understand why people don't like that movie, but I do. And I say that as a fan of the Max Payne games. But going back to Die Hard 5, like I was reading an interview with Kevin Smith shortly after it was announced that Bruce Willis was retiring from acting, and Kevin Smith has talked at length about the issues he had with Bruce Willis filming Cop Out in 2009 and 2010. And you gotta wonder how far back Bruce's aphasia went, and if it was starting to affect him as early as when he was filming Cop Out, because I've seen a number of Bruce's direct-to-video movies that he made throughout the 2010s and up to his recent retirement. And you start to notice that at some point in the late 2000s, you start to notice where he just stops, he reaches a point where he just stops giving a shit. Where it seems like he just stops giving a shit. Like, he's not putting his all into most of his performances. Like, the best performance I've seen from him recently was in Eli Roth's Death Wish reboot from 2018. But even then, there were still occasions where you could see hiccups in his performance. And that movie was originally supposed to be a Liam Neeson movie anyway. I don't know.
Yeah, I can see Liam Neeson in a Death Wish movie.
Yeah, at one point it was going to be Stallone, and then when he left, it went to Liam Neeson, and then he dropped out, and it went to Bruce Willis. It's still a solid movie. It's a solid Death Wish movie, and a solid movie in general. But that, even though there's still hiccups in his performance in that movie, you can still see he's doing everything he can to give a decent performance. I bring this up because, in Live Free or Die Hard, you still saw that he gave an inkling of a shit. He was still in full John McClane mode throughout that movie. In this,
at least in the remake, the character's name was still Paul.
Paul Kersey,
Yeah.
Still not Paul Benjamin like the book, but anyways.
I forgot it was based on the book.
Yeah, you'd be amazed how many movies out there are actually adapted from novels or graphic novels.
Yeah, like The Thing.
Or No Country for Old Men. Or A History of Violence with Viggo Mortensen. Or
that was right. That was him coming off of being in Lord of the Rings. So,
or Red, the Bruce Willis spy movie, that was based off a comic book.
Huh.
Yeah, but you gotta wonder if Bruce. When I watch Bruce in this movie, you gotta wonder if his aphasia was slowly. Like the early effects of it were starting to set in, because he just does not give a shit in this movie. There are things he does that McClane would not do, like just punching a random Yahoo on the street. And then just saying, call a cop, as he steals the guy's car.
That's actually badass.
Or the constant times throughout the movie where he's just randomly screaming, "I'm on fucking vacation!" It's like, no, you're not. You went to Russia to see your son who you thought was on trial for homicide. But it turns out he's like some kind of budget 007.
Oh, fuck.
I didn't mind Jai Courtney in this movie because it feels like it's supposed to be his action movie. It's just that, and it's, again, in a vacuum, this movie's actually not bad. I'm not a fan of John Moore's use of shaky cam and slam zooms and the occasional quick cuts, and the asinine decision to shoot this movie in 1:8:7 or 1:8:5 ratio instead of 2:35 with that big widescreen feel like Rennie Harlan, John McTiernan, even Len Wiseman in Live Free or Die Hard, even though he used shaky cam and quick cuts, because that was, thanks to Paul Greengrass, that was the standard for action back then. Yeah, I still say Paul Greengrass's Jason Bourne movies ruined action until Chris McQuarrie and Chad Stahelski came along with Jack Reacher and John Wick. I'm not a fan of John Moore's use of the shaky cam and slam zooms and quick cuts. This movie still has some entertaining enough action sequences. It just doesn't feel like Die Hard. You know, the stakes don't the stakes aren't as clear. There's no clear antagonist, and Bruce Willis's give a fuck a meter has drained, possibly due to his developing aphasia at the time of filming. You know, Live Free or Die Hard was a bang, and Good Day to Die Hard was a fizzle. And now we have to get to another.
The final.
Do what?
The final.
Oh no, Good Day to Die Hard. That's it so far. There have been rumors for a while now that they might bring the series back through either a prequel or a reboot. I mean, a prequel could make sense. There is a comic called Die Hard Year One, which shows John McClane as a young rookie New York officer following a tour of duty in Vietnam. Which, McClane being an ex-Marine and a Vietnam veteran would actually make sense. I think they should not hit the reset button. Rumors are they're eyeballing Aaron Paul for the next John McClane, and I don't. No, Bruce Willis is John McClane, and he should stay that way.
Like Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones?
Yeah. Now, I doubt Disney will honor Harrison Ford's wishes to not have any more Indiana Jones movies made following his passing. I mean,
Disney.
I mean, they already have shown that they don't have any respect for the dead, because
of Stan Lee.
Because of Stan Lee, because of Chadwick Boseman's passing. He wanted them to recast T'Challa after he passed, and instead of doing that, Disney decided to kill T'Challa off in the new Black Panther movie, and I have a feeling it's going to bite them in the ass at the box office. I could be wrong. I mean, the last few Marvel movies sold like chocolate-coated heroin. But, you know, I don't see Black Panther 2 being a new success story, but anyways. I think if they're going to keep the Die Hard franchise going again, if they're going to dust this brand off and get it moving again, here's what I think should happen. So, in one of the Die Hard video games that I have a game called Die Hard Vendetta. In that game, McClane's daughter Lucy, who was played by Mary Winstead in the fourth movie, is a rookie LA officer. Here's what I think should happen. The next Die Hard movie should open with Lucy visiting, if you can get Bruce Willis cognitively willing to do it, visiting McClane at his house. He's now retired, living in LA, living out the rest of his days. You could maybe get an appearance from Bonnie Bedelia as Holly, and from Reginald Val Johnson as Al. You could have Lucy visiting McClane to break the news to him that she has now passed her detective's exam and she has a shiny new detective's badge. She's an LAPD officer. And then you could have Lucy go to like a police Christmas party or something like that, or hell, it doesn't even have to be a Christmas party. It could just be a New Year's party or a Halloween party or whatever, or policeman's ball. And you have some like a group of renegade anti-police terrorists take over, take the entire party hostage, holding the police hostage, and then you could have Lucy tank top, barefoot, armed with only her service pistol, and you could have the terrorists bring cellular jammers so that she can't use her cell phone to contact the outside, and you could have her be the new hero, the new McClane. You still with me?
Yeah.
It would be a great, like, her visiting McClane early on in the movie could be a good passing of the torch from him to his daughter. You could have since Hollywood right now is so in favor of putting more women in action movie roles, it's a way to do it naturally without thumbing your nose at fans of the previous entries. I mean, Lucy in Die Hard 4 already showed she has enough of that McClane fire. You give her a little bit of police training, you'd be amazed at what she could possibly do on her own, and if Bruce is cognitively up to it, you could have her somehow find a way to contact him on the outside, and then he could serve as her version of Al in the first movie. Like that's something I would actually watch. Not fuck doing a reboot or a prequel. Just pass the baton to Lucy McClane.
Right. Can get more sequels that way.
Yeah, and Mary Winstead has shown that she can do action. I liked her in Birds of Prey. I haven't seen it, but I'm told that the Netflix movie she was in, Kate, was actually really good. I mean, it's 8711 doing it. Of course it's going to be... It should be a fun movie. I mean, she can do action. And you can tool the... And you can tool the action to make it feel like at any point in time she could easily lose, because that was something that was missing in Die Hard 5. In Good Day to Die Hard was that persistent fear that McClane could die. It was in all four of the. It was in all the other previous movies. It was in the first four, and then they just completely dropped it in 5, and you could bring that back and make Lucy a very vulnerable, a constantly vulnerable character who bleeds and doubts herself at times and is not constantly on top of the situation. Fuck it, I'd watch that in a heartbeat. And get somebody who knows how to shoot action to direct that movie. Like I would say bring back John McTiernan, because he hasn't done anything since 2006. He still could. You could still get some good action out of him. Or hell, you don't even have to use him. You could bring back Len Wiseman after he's done with Ballerina. You could hire Antoine Fuqua after he's done with Equalizer 3. You could hire Rick Roman Wog, who did Snitch with The Rock and did Angel Has Fallen. You could hire Scott Wog, who's right now working on Expendables 4, and he also did Need for Speed and Act of Valor, both of which were fucking fantastic. Or you could get Catherine Bigelow, who did Point Break, the original Point Break, and also did Zero Dark 30. Both fantastic movies for different reasons, but fantastic regardless.
Yep.
Or hell, you don't even have to bring them. You could get there's a director who primarily works in the direct-to-video world, Jesse Johnson, and he's done a shitload of work with Scott Adkins. Triple Threat they did with Scott Adkins and Michael Jai White and Tony Jaa, Iko Uwais. He did Accident Man that Scott Adkins was also in. He did The Package, which is this criminally overlooked movie that Stone Cold Steve Austin and Dolph Lundgren were in. Or you could get Jeremy Rush, the guy who directed the Netflix movie Wheelman with Frank Grillo, to do it. Because if he was able to make such a tight, intense movie that is the whole first hour of it is just all taking place inside of this one car, and then Frank Grillo gets into another car, and the rest of the movie stays inside of that car. Like, if he could do a movie that intense with such a small budget and it's only 82 minutes long, imagine what he could do with a Die Hard size budget. Have you seen Wheelman?
You said Wheelman?
Yeah. The Frank Grillo Netflix movie.
Can't say I have.
You should. You should. You should. It's probably my favorite Netflix original. Or, hell, you could get David Ayer to direct it. He did
Suicide Squad.
Suicide Squad. He did Street Kings with Keanu Reeves. He did End of Watch with Jake Gyllenhaal and Michael Pena. He did Bright with Joel Edgerton and Will Smith. I would say you could get Adam Wingard, but I think he's doing the new... I think he's directing... Isn't he doing the next Monsterverse movie?
Who?
Adam Wingard.
Yeah, it's been said for a while he's gonna return.
Okay. I couldn't remember if he was signed on to that or if he actually was going to go ahead with that. With supposedly he's been tapped to do a Thundercats movie for Warner Brothers.
Yeah, focus on Godzilla and Kong first, dude.
I want to see a Thundercats movie.
I want to see a Thundercats movie too, but I'm just saying, if they hold production of that movie just to get that out, I'm not going to be happy.
Well, I'm not a kaiju fan, so there's that.
Right now, us kaiju fans have a lot to be excited about because, well, for one, Godzilla is going to be a playable character in Gigabash. On November 3rd of next year, we're getting an all-new Japanese movie, and in March of 20, and then about 4 months later, we're getting Godzilla and Kong.
Well, and meanwhile, guys like me who are fans of just pure straight up action, and it's kind of like what are we getting? What are we getting in the theaters outside of John Wick, Fast and Furious, and Mission Impossible for next year? I mean, I know we've got Violent Night coming up in December with David Harbour and John Leguizamo, but
John Wick 4 is supposed to be out in March.
yeah, I mean, we've got Violent Night, we've got John Wick 4, we've got Fast 10, and Mission Impossible 7. But it's like right now it's mainly superheroes. You know, we don't have a regular Joe, hero like John McClane to look forward to seeing kick ass, and it's kind of one of the reasons I brought up my idea for a sixth Die Hard movie with Mary Winstead in the John McClane, well, doing her John McClane thing. You know.
Oh yeah.
And you could still use because when they were still in pre-production for the sixth movie before Bruce Willis retired, they were going to call it McClane. Well, you could still call it McClane. It's just not going to be John McClane. It's going to be Lucy McClane. And I it's better than just hitting the reset button and expecting the audience to accept a different actor playing John McClane.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you could do that. Like they're getting ready to do that with the next Rambo. I was reading an interview with Stallone yesterday where he said that the next Rambo was gonna be him passing the torch to another character, and that person possibly continuing the franchise. I don't know how it's gonna work, but hey, if that's how Sly wants to handle his series, that I wouldn't be against that. We're about to see that with Expendables, because Expendables 4 is going to be Sly passing the baton of franchise lead to Jason Statham's character, and so Statham is going to be the new face of is going to be the new front and center face of the Expendables series. You know that it all makes sense. You know, hand it from John to Lucy McClane.
Yeah, get more movies, and given Mary Elizabeth Winstead's age, you get a lot more movies that way.
Yeah, and you give her more opportunities you have a chance to make a genuine female action lead without just forcing the audience's nose into it. You have a chance to make something that people will actually latch on to.
Yeah, and also you're not forcefully gender swapping a well-known action hero.
Yeah, exactly. Like they did, like Ghostbusters. When they did that, and then were shocked and amazed that audiences farted at it. You know, that's my idea, and you will never convince me that it's not the best way to continue the Die Hard brand. You know,
oh yeah.
You know, I adore this franchise, and I think that would be the best and most natural way to keep it going. You know?
Yeah. It'll be the good kind of legacy sequel.
Exactly. Yeah, that's... And on that note, do you have anything you would like to add? Because you haven't said a whole lot this stream.
I mean, I'm a fan of the Die Hard movies, but I don't know as much about the backstory as you do. But whatever they decide to do with the series going forward, hopefully it's good.
Yes.
Oh, also it's real quick worth noting that back in early 2021 they added John McClane as a playable operator to Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War.
Yeah, I've
John
seen
McClane and John Rambo. John McClane and John Rambo.
Yeah, and all they're missing is John Matrix from Commando.
I think they were originally planning to do like a crossover with Arnold Schwarzenegger, but obviously that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Maybe in the next Black Ops game. Then again, I think during the time of development, during the time of that, he was working on becoming the Terminator in Mortal Kombat 11.
I mean, it doesn't take that long to record voiceover.
Well, the funny thing is, Rambo. I don't think Bruce Willis or Sylvester Stallone even came back to do any voice lines for Cold War. They just, you play as John McClane in Warzone. He has a few quips here and there, but it doesn't sound like the voice of Bruce Willis.
I think, I could be wrong, but I believe they just clipped audio from the movies and threw that in because that's what it sounded like to me. Okay.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. Like, you listen to some of Rambo's quotes in Zombies, he's like, "Hey, let's go."
Yeah, and
I'm just saying, I only played as Rambo once in Black Ops Cold War Zombies, and literally during the entire time, I only heard him say one thing.
Yeah. So
fitting, because Rambo man a few words.
Yeah. So I'm bringing up the this video of McClane voice lines on the stream just to see if it actually is just clipped audio from the movies.
Wouldn't surprise me. It's set in the 80s.
No! Drop it, dickhead. It's the police. You motherfucker, you made your point! You motherfucker, you made your point! I'm on your side, you assholes!
Yeah, that is audio literally clipped straight from the movies.
I'm on your side, you asshole!
Yeah. Honestly,
I remember that clip.
Honestly, they didn't do too bad a job rendering Bruce Willis's likeness into the game.
Well, you gotta think, we have this technology called facial capturing.
Yeah. Although I don't know if I don't think they actually did get Bruce Willis into the studio to do voice capture.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, like, you know what was a dead giveaway for me that it was clipped audio was that where it's just abruptly cuts in and out, you motherfucker. That was literally, I know exactly where that's taken from. It's taken from in the first movie when the SWAT team is trying to take the tower and failing, and they're just getting their shit kicked in by Hans's guys, and John screams into his walkie, "Hans, you motherfucker, you made your point, let him pull back!" Literally, just those two words, "you motherfucker," I know exactly where that was clipped from.
Right.
See, yeah, there is no way they brought Bruce Willis in to record because his voice in '88 sounds
30.
significant. It's somewhat deeper than it is. His voice now is significantly deeper, and it's much more grizzled than it was back in '88. Because he was still, I think, in his 30s when he did that.
He was like 30. He was like 32, 33.
Yeah, he was still pretty young when he did, and now he's like 67.
Yep, he was born 55.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Michael Keaton was born in 51. Holy shit.
Yeah. But
what I wouldn't give to grow up in the 60s.
yeah. At least back then we still had something of an economy. Although that would require you to live through the 70s, where the American economy was pretty much just as much in the shitter as it is right now.
Well, back then we had Daisy Duke.
Yeah, but she didn't roll around until 79, so...
Around then, my dad was 12.
Yeah. Although back then you did have Charlie's Angels, and you had Linda Carter as Wonder Woman. I wish I had grown up. I wish I had grown up in the 80s.
Yeah, then we would have gotten to see Linda Hamilton in Terminator.
And you would have gotten to see Die Hard when it came out.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that movie came out literally. You were literally -5 when that movie came out.
You know, I have never seen a single Die Hard movie in theaters. I know I mentioned seeing Die Hard 4 theatrically, but I didn't actually watch it in the theater. I watched a burned DVD copy of it.
Close enough.
I still wish I had seen it in the theater. And I wish they would do like an anniversary screening for the original movie, because I want to know what it feels like seeing it in the theater.
I mean, I saw Jurassic Park in the theater on its 20th anniversary, so...
Yeah, that's still the only Jurassic Park movie I haven't watched in a theater setting.
Hey, keep your fingers crossed, and maybe in 2028 they'll do a 40th anniversary screening of Die Hard.
Yeah.
That's only 6 years away, though.
Or next year they could do like a 35th anniversary of it.
Yeah, that'd be a hell of a lot less of a wait. But you know how some anniversaries are; they like to have a 0 in there.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, Jurassic Park turns 30 next year, and I get the feeling they're gonna bring it back to theaters at least one more time.
Yeah, you think that's nuts? The James Bond franchise turns 60 this year. At least the films do.
Yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my head around how I feel about Daniel Craig as James Bond.
Oh.
I mean, it's been several movies, and it's like, I still can't decide what I think about this guy.
I kind of go back and forth on him. I grew up with Pierce Brosnan, so...
Yeah, isn't that the former James Bond actor who played Dr. Fate?
Yep.
I was gonna say he was a damn good Dr. Fate.
Yeah, he was my favorite part of Black Adam.
I was gonna say, too bad he died like a bitch, though.
Yeah. I have my own issues. I have my own issues with that movie.
Then again, yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that next time.
Yeah, some other time maybe. Yeah, I have my own issues with Black Adam, but I'm not going to voice them here. Unless you've got.
Well, I already put a spoiler in here, so oops.
Womp womp. That's okay. Barely anybody's going to see it.
Oh no, I heard it's racking in money.
I mean, it's doing okay, but it's not smashing the box office wide open. Because all the good movies...
the way I see it's the way I see it, it's shed some light on hope for a couple of certain long absent DCEU superheroes.
Well, as far as Die Hard goes, the only thing I've really got to add is that I'm going to be doing some playthroughs of some Die Hard games coming up just to celebrate Christmas. I've got Die Hard Nakatomi Plaza installed on my computer. Earlier today,
later.
Earlier today, I installed a TurboGrafx 16 emulator, and I found a Die Hard game on that, which I played a couple levels of it, and it feels more like Ikari Warriors than Die Hard. And I've got Die Hard Vendetta, as I mentioned. I've got Die Hard Vendetta on GameCube. And I need to get a better copy of Die Hard Trilogy 2 on PlayStation. That's the one where McClane goes to Las Vegas and tears ass through Sin City, fighting terrorists. Why that wasn't... Yeah, that's... I actually like it, but I mean, it's a goofy, it's a fun time, it's a fun little action game. So after I finish my Pandora Tomorrow playthrough, which I only have a couple more missions left to do on that one, I'm going to be focusing most of my attention on Die Hard games. So you guys can look forward to lots and lots and lots of McClane. And I don't know what we're going to talk about for the next stream, but we'll figure it out we'll figure it out in the interim. And until then, thanks for watching. Take care and yippee-ki-yay, you motherfuckers.